All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to our city council meeting tonight. We have a really great crowd in the audience. We're really happy to see everybody here today. We're going to go ahead and start with our roll call, please.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Here.
Councilmember Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. Is Tracy Swindler in the audience today? Come on up. We're going to have our invocation and then our Pledge of Allegiance.
So good evening. I want to share a quote with you I read the other day, and then we'll go right into prayer. So this quote is from C.S. Lewis. It says, "We all want progress, but if we're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about face and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive." So Father God, we just invite you here tonight, Lord. Lord, I pray tonight for the city. I pray that we have progress, Lord, and that progress is influenced by you. I pray that if we are ever on the wrong road, Lord, or at any time or any point, Father, that you turn us and head us back on the right road or back on the right path. I pray for your wisdom tonight, Father, that to just come upon this city tonight, Lord, our leaders, Lord, and just lead us in a progressive manner, Father, that would glorify your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If anyone has an item on the agenda that they wish to talk about today, we would like to invite you to fill out a form and turn it into our city clerk. And that will take care of our procedures for public comments. But we do have in our first 15 minutes open public comment from anybody who wishes to speak. And I know Mary Chamberlain, you would like to come up, and I'll go ahead and invite you now. Yep.
Hello, my name is Mary Chamberlain. I reside at 2403 Greenway Circle here in Canyon City. And I just wanted to come and talk to you briefly about the SoCo Tourism Summit, which is going to happen April 8th through the 10th. It's here in Fremont County. I came last year and spoke to you about, and it was in La Junta last year. Let me tell you briefly about the Tourism Summit. This is an 11-county tourism summit. There's 2 different regional tourism groups that come together. One of them is called Southern Rockies Crossroads of Cultures, which Canyon City is part of. It goes from Fremont County down to Los Animas County. The other region is the Southeast, which is Canyons and Plains. So it's all the way from La Junta down to, let me think. So those towns way down southeast. So we came together 4 years ago to put on a regional tourism summit. This is the first time that it is in Fremont County. We go back and forth between the 2 regions. It's been very exciting. A lot of great things are happening. I have a card for each one of you if you want, if I can approach. And it's so you can look at the website, but we're starting in Westcliff. It is regional, so we're starting in Westcliff on April 8th. We're going up there to the Dark Skies and coming back down, going to Florence on the 9th, and then in the afternoon on the 9th, we're going to come back to Canyon City, and Will Colin is going to do a trolley and Jeep tour for us. We're going to have an information session at the County Administration Building. We're going to go up to the Dinosaur Experience, have dinner at the Royal Gorge. Lots and lots of stuff. The theme is think outside. It means outside, but also think outside the box. We're going to be seeing many things, like in Florence, the Emergent Campus, that is like thinking outside the box. So it's economic development as well as tourism. We are reaching people from the 11 counties as well as Cripple Creek, and we usually get some from like Durango. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. I've been working with Ryan, and he knows all about it, and he's been very helpful. So I just wanted to let you know about it. I'll have this card for you. The way you can support us is, I mean, if you wanted to send someone, that's great, but also we will be having like a dinner up at the Royal Gorge. We will send out an invitation. We would hope that you would come out there and be able to, you know, introduce the city and welcome the participants. So that is all.
We would be very happy to help and support in any way that we can. Thank you for all of your hard work
All right, thank
in
you.
helping to promote our area. I do have something from Councilmember Gonzalez.
I just had a question. I hadn't heard of this yet, so it's news to me. Exciting news. But what kind of people are on this? Is it other tourism communities or committees from other communities that are coming to tour our area?
Good question. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And also some economic development people. We're really reaching really hard this year, trying to get to the southeast region. Next year, it will be in the southeast region again. You know, it flips. But yes, so it is tourism industry people as well as economic development.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, can I give you one of these?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
the website is up and going. We're still making some adjustments, but this is it.
Thank you again, Mary. You are a busy lady in Fremont County. We'll pass them on. Are there any others who wish to approach council? Dennis Weed?
This is just a procedural question. I wanted to speak on stormwater when it comes up. Do I need to fill one of these out, or?
Yes. So you need to fill it out for stormwater, and we can just get it up to Cindy.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, how about council member announcements? Councilmember Meisner.
As a former distinguished citizen with my wife, Jolene, I'd like to welcome Tim and his wife, Emily, as the 2020 Distinguished Citizens. Congratulations.
Thank you. Very humbling and a great honor to us, so thank you.
That is well deserved, and thank you for representing Canyon City so well in our community. Speaking of those honors, one of our employees, Jim Johnson, also received an honor at the Chamber of Commerce banquet for his work in the outdoors. And so another opportunity to just really show pride of our staff and our employees as well. So please send our congratulations officially to Jim Johnson as well.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of reminders for council. We do have a US 50 West Access Control Plan draft review. That's a council meeting if you choose to attend to review the draft. There is a public meeting on January 22nd, which is our Vision Committee meeting. We're going to be looking at Title 17 cleanup and amending the planned development district language. And then we have on January 30th a community relations meeting with the prison, with our prison managers, and I'm looking forward to that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamrick. And Mandy Reed.
So I just wanted to remind everyone also that this Friday, the Pregnancy Center is having their annual banquet at E-Free. So just a reminder for that for anyone that's interested in being able to support the Canyon City Pregnancy Center, which is now known as Abundant Life. So that's going to be at E-Free, and they still have tickets. So we wish them well on their big event. And then also just to speak for anyone who was able to make the FEDC annual banquet, I think that was a success. It was really exciting to hear some of the things that are going on in Fremont County, Canyon City specifically, and I think we had a really good representation there that night. It was great to see the community come out, so I was just really pleased with the turnout that we had this year. Was just really great. So,
yeah, it was a fantastic evening full of a lot of really positive energy. I do have another announcement. On our city council calendar, it has down February 11th for the Downtown Business Alliance meeting with city council, and that's been scheduled to March 10th at 5:30, and that's where we've started meeting together as a city council, together with the Downtown Business Alliance, where we can sit down together and have casual conversations about what their needs are, how we can support and work together to help uplift the downtown and the merchants' needs. So that will be March 10th at 5:30. If you'd like to make a little change to your calendars then. If there aren't any other comments from city council members, I'm just really honored to be able to take a few minutes of our meeting today and pay tribute to Myron Smitty and all of his family members that are here tonight. Smitty was a man that we all loved dearly. He had a huge heart, and he worked hard for Fremont County as a whole, and he was a prominent leader throughout his life. And we're all pretty saddened at his tragic loss to our community and to your family. I know that you feel it greatly. I would like to read a proclamation. Canyon City will declare January 2020 the Myron Smitty Smith Month, which is pretty awesome. But if we wouldn't mind, I think, to maybe set the tone for that, I'd like to invite his grandson to come up and address council and the city as a whole first.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and distinguished members of the City Council. On behalf of my family, Smitty's wife is here present, and members of the family are here, and really just want to thank the City Council for the honor for my grandfather. His commitment to public service and community involvement, community engagement, may it serve as a very aspirational goal for all of us. His love for Canyon City and his love for Fremont County is just unbelievable. It was such a huge part of who he was, and being involved in the community was something that brought him so much joy in his life. So on behalf of the family, thank you.
Absolutely. And after I read this proclamation, if you're comfortable, we would love to take a picture together with your family, if we may, just to be a part of that moment to honor him and his significance to our community. Something I really loved at the Chamber of Commerce banquet, I think Carl, the president of the Chamber Board, really said it well, that we always think of Myron's favorite colors as being blue and orange in honor of the Denver Broncos, but he really had red, white, and blue running through and through, and his patriotism was fantastic. So the honorary proclamation. January 2020 is Myron Smitty Smith Month. Whereas Myron Smitty Smith has dedicated countless years of service to Canyon City and the surrounding area, and whereas Smitty shared his expertise, compassion, integrity, and freely gave his time to the citizens of Fremont County, and whereas Smitty greatly impacted the lives of the people who he came into contact with, and whereas Smitty devoted many years to local organizations such as the Canyon City Chamber of Commerce, Fremont County Airport Advisory Board, Pueblo Community College Fremont Campus Advisory Board, Fundraising Committee for the Museum of Colorado Prisons, County Commissioner, Florence City Councilman, volunteer firefighter for Florence, and executive director for Fremont Economic Development Corporation. And whereas the City of Canyon City, on behalf of the Fremont County community, appreciates the thousands of hours of service expended by Mr. Smith. Now, therefore, I, Ashley Smith, Mayor of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, on behalf of the citizens of our community, do hereby proclaim January 2020 as Myron Smitty Smith Month. So congratulations. So I have your proclamation here. That's official and signed, so I would like to invite you all to come up. Councilmember Smith, did you have something? Oh, you don't, okay. I think it would probably also be prudent to announce that Ron Kimmel passed away yesterday, and it's just so that you can also keep his wife in your thoughts and prayers as well. They're an important part of our community as well. We're now ready to review our consent agenda, and I'd like to ask the city administrator to do the review.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, 8A is the approval of minutes for the regular city council meeting on January 6th, the general government meeting on January 8th, and the special city council meeting on January 13th. 8B accepts the resignation of David Riley from the Board of Adjustments. 8C authorizes the extension of bid 1219 for water stock parts. 8D authorizes matching funds of $10,000 for TechStart for a Colorado Department of Labor and Employment grant. 8E awards bid 1020 copier replacement to Gobins in an amount not to exceed $49,249. 8F is actually a resolution. We'd ask that that gets moved to the regular portion of the agenda. 8G authorizes the mayor to sign a street sweeping agreement with the Royal Gorge Company of Colorado. 8H ratifies the Unite Fiber agreements. 8I is the monthly budget summary, and 8J is to receive and file a list of bills.
Yeah, so when someone's ready to make a motion, we'll need to amend F to be moved to the regular agenda, probably to item 10A. Are there any questions from council members?
Sure.
Councilmember Meisner.
I have a number of questions that I had emailed to Ryan, which he apparently answered that I can't seem to see on my phone, but my biggest concern is the licensing, or the fiber agreements. Where do we stand with those? Were those items reviewed by the attorney and signed off by the attorney?
Yes, they were.
Do you have more questions?
I do.
Councilmember Meisner?
I just need to look at my email.
Okay, yeah, it takes a little while for it to load. While Jim's looking at his email, on item E, are those copiers going to the library?
We do have a copier going to the library, one here at City Hall. And Chase, do you have the complete list of where they're going?
It's in the packet.
I think it is.
I do have a complete list. I guess I have to look through my emails too.
And while we're doing that, Mr. Administrator, are these, so these are existing copiers that are being replaced?
They are. So the copier at the library has outlived its useful life. The copier that we have upstairs in City Hall is outliving its useful life.
Any of the copiers that are still functioning, do we ever consider donating those to some of the charitable organizations?
I believe in this instance, is it Luan, Chase, that the current agreement?
Yes, we had quite a bit of trouble with Luan, and it got to the point that they were unresponsive. So we made a plan over the last 2 years, and this is the last of that plan, to move away from them. And we primarily are going to use Gobins going forward.
And is Luan taking possession of those copiers at the end of this agreement?
Some of them, it depends on how the original agreements were made with Luan. But the ones that they're not taking possession of, Gobins has agreed to work with us to dispose of them.
Thank you.
So I did see that the library is getting 3 of those. I did have an opportunity to take a tour of the library today and just happened to see firsthand their desperate need for those copiers. But above and beyond that, they need to be installed in a timely manner. They have laptops that also need to be connected, and some work with the software. So the patrons, when they come to the library, they're not connecting to the printers to print the items that they need. And so it's really troublesome to be able to provide that service to our patrons. And so we
Right.
need to make sure we take care of that.
Yeah, so these copiers will help, with a lot of those issues that they've been having.
And to clarify, I believe 2 are going to the library, not
2.
3.
It says 3 in the memo.
It says 3 in here.
Okay, then I'd go off that. It was Elijah's project, so.
It's black and white. Okay, excellent. Councilmember Meisner.
Are you going to be able to connect those printers through, I assume, a public Wi-Fi without any security risks to the same printer that's connected?
They're on a separate network, and the way the public machines are set up is separate from the public Wi-Fi.
Separate from the,
Yes, they will not be able to print from the public Wi-Fi, and they've never had that ability. But there are public machines that they can print from.
But they can connect Bluetooth from their computer, or they have to do?
So it goes, they select print off of the computers at the library, and it goes to the librarian's computer, and then she approves it, and then it goes to the printer. But right now, she has to take a thumb drive, go download it onto the thumb drive, take the thumb drive, put it into her computer, download it, and then go to the printer. So it's really, she's like had all these thumb drives and was trying to take care of everybody. And I mean, that's just archaic.
Mm-hmm.
So we really appreciate the work that you do, and anticipating the librarians are going to be ecstatic to have these new copiers and some help there.
I hope so.
Can I say something about this? I'm glad that we're moving towards using local. I think that's really great. I've always been an advocate for that, so thank you.
Any other comments from council? I'd like to ask for a motion, please.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move that we accept the agenda and consent agenda with the exception of removing item F, as in Frank, from the consent agenda and moving it to item 10A on the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Discussion.
Yes, so we will have some discussion. Member Gonzalez, would you like to say something?
Yes, so in Jim's email that he sent out, I noticed that a question came up about, are these funds, some of these projects that we've been working on, have these funds already been dispersed? And what was your I can't remember quite what the question was, but it seemed like none of these came to council before they were awarded.
The Unite Fiber?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did sign that ahead of it coming to council. There were some time restrictions there with Unite and some of the projects that they were working on that were related to some economic development deals. I think Unite's unique in a perspective that they're functioning more like a utility in providing those broadband services. It's not like we had the opportunity to bid out that a lot of that infrastructure is already in the ground, and we're going to be turning some of that infrastructure on. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. And then also, I have a question about the budget. Last month, I had questioned a miscellaneous charge for $3,999. And you responded with what those were. This month, I noticed there was another $4,400 miscellaneous fiber optic to Amazon as well. At this point, I'm asking for a breakdown of what that is.
Sure.
Receipts.
Yeah, so I think, in the past, with previous administration, P cards were not broken out individually. It was just one lump sum of this is what was paid for the P cards. We've been trying to get more visibility behind some of those transactions. So a lot of these items that you're seeing that say miscellaneous, they're rolled up. So there's actually multiple line items that are rolled up into one category. We can actually give you a report that has all the individual line items if that's what you'd like to see.
I think maybe if we're spending that much on miscellaneous items, then maybe they need to be categorized differently.
And they are categorized. For the purposes of this report, it says miscellaneous because they're being rolled up. You have multiple departments and multiple items in multiple categories being rolled up to one vendor, and that's why it says miscellaneous. But we can certainly provide an expanded report if that's what you'd like to see.
I think it would be prudent, just for the sake of transparency.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Meisner.
Well, I know that these are in an email that were answered, but first of all, the whirlwind tax refund,
Yes, sir.
what's that?
So we had a project where both the contractor and the building company both paid the use tax. That whirlwind use tax refund went back to the company that manufactured the manufacturing building. So essentially, it was double paid. We were returning the funds.
How long did we keep those?
In this particular instance, I don't know. I'd have to double check and see.
What's your guesstimate? I mean, days, weeks, months? How long did we have those people's money?
Honestly, sir, I don't know. I'd have to look and see. I'd hate to put a guesstimate and be wrong.
Back to the agreements, there's a mention of a $1,200 savings compared to the normal rates. And apparently, part of your answer is that the $1,200 was compensation for the utilization of the closet?
Correct. So with this agreement, for those internet rates, it'd be about $1,200. We are foregoing that particular fee because we're basically doing a lease agreement with Unite Fiber to utilize space here on City Hall property.
So one of my basic question is what is the overall cost of whatever service we're getting here for some fiber optic and internet, I guess, access? Where's that cost compared to what we're paying now?
So what we're paying now is just over $1,000. That's for all of our buildings right now, but those are at various different levels of speeds and service. Oftentimes we have struggles maintaining access or service level agreements from some of those providers where we have buildings going down and not having access to the internet. So with this project, all of the buildings are going to be looped together on one fiber backbone at much higher speeds.
And what's the cost for that? I mean, I don't know that I saw that. I mean, what are we paying for this service? Are they going to give it to us?
So the $1,200 is a cost that they would normally charge us for the service. That is going to be, that's included because we're providing this closet. And then there's $1,500 a month as well, which is the backbone of the service. And Chase, you might want to explain that in a little bit more detail.
Yes, so normal market rates for the type of service we'd be purchasing would be $2,700. We're going to pay $1,500, and we're going to trade the closet back here so they can put some equipment that they have secure access to. And we're replacing about $1,200 worth of cost that we pay anyway to a various pool of other providers, which are unreliable. And like the museum, their phones are probably down a third of the time. because the only thing we can get there is Verizon. And I'm glad that it works, but it doesn't work well enough to do what we need. And I know there was, the list I sent Ryan earlier, there was about 8 different providers that we're going to replace with one. So it's going to greatly simplify what we have to do. So there's also a man-hour aspect that I'm not sure how to quantify what it'll be, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Didn't it tell, it states somewhere in this contract that we are responsible for construction of the lines?
That is the dark agreement, which is different than the lit agreement. So the lit agreement is internet access.
Okay.
The dark agreement is our own private lines between our buildings.
And those do or do not exist?
They exist, but they're not connected to our buildings, so we have to pay the cost to connect them.
Which is roughly?
400. That was a big project we budgeted for. I want to say it's like $500,000, but this is a long-term, I mean, this is a 50-year plus investment in infrastructure. And probably one we should have done 10 years ago when the agreement was originally made.
So in the dark services agreement, where it says 400,000,
Yes,
that's the connection fee?
That's,
yes.
yeah,
That
that's the construction project connecting all the buildings together.
Yes. That is construction costs.
So, once we've connected this fiber to the buildings, who owns the fiber?
We have access to it according to the franchise agreement that was made with Unite Fiber. So I don't want to say we own it because there are certain things that we can't do with it. For example, we can't turn around and resell it to somebody that's going to resell it again. It has to be used for city purposes. That's pretty much the only clause in the agreement. So we have total access to it, but it has to be for our purposes.
And the agreement relative to the fiber, how long of an agreement is that?
Relative to the,
Fiber,
The light agreement?
okay.
I'm not sure if I understand what you're asking.
How long is the light
the
agreement?
franchise agreement?
I don't know, she called it light.
So the lit agreement is for internet service, and that's different than the dark agreement. The dark agreement is what connects our sites with our own fiber that we will have access to for city purposes.
Okay.
And the lit service is for 60 months.
Is the lit agreement currently in place, or is that going to be a whole new agreement?
So there were 3 agreements that were part of this item: the lit agreement, the dark agreement, and then an addendum to the lit agreement. The addendum to the lit agreement is where they trade us for the closet.
So those will go in place once the construction project's been completed.
Do we have an idea how long the construction will take?
Start date is in July.
Yes, they ballparked at the end of July. How long it'll take to complete, I'm not sure, but I know that their plan is to bring crews down, and it's not just us they're connecting. There's several people across even the county, not just Canyon City. And they've worked, I'm not sure the details, but I know they've worked out agreements with the state to do some stuff towards the west. And they're going to come in and build a lot of infrastructure. And when their crews get going, they're just going to keep rolling. And we're one little piece of that.
And we do have other council members that would like to speak.
Let them speak.
Is this still on the same topic, or do you have another one?
I still have questions. But
Okay,
go
well,
ahead.
let's give some other turns. So, Councilmember Reed.
So, Ryan, on here, I know we talked about the miscellaneous expenses, and when they have the asterisks, then it means that there's multiple things rolled up to it.
Correct.
My recommendation would be that maybe consistently we can at least have an additional sheet that kind of unrolls those a little bit, because when I'm reviewing this, I see just shy of $11,000 of miscellaneous expenses, and so it's just hard to confidently approve a budget when you don't understand that amount, particularly the Amazon, which Councilmember Gonzalez spoke about at the last meeting, understanding what some of those purchases are. and who has access to the Amazon account, those types of things. I'm sure you know, but if you wouldn't mind maybe adding it to this so we could see it.
Yeah, and I think, the expanded report is probably what you're going to see, just because that's going to alleviate some of those concerns. It's going to have, multiple lines rather than just miscellaneous. Because when you do break, go into that level of detail, you do see how it's coded as well.
That makes sense. I just think, and of course I'm green at this particular part of it, but having looked at a lot of financial reports, just when you see Amazon, you see TJ Maxx, and you see Walmart, there's just so many things that can be in there. And so just making sure that we're making our dollar go as far as we can. So I just would recommend that and appreciate that.
Right, and part of the reason you're starting to see it this way as well is because we have set up an actual Amazon account in the past. Departments had their own accounts, or people were using their individual accounts for some of these. We do have an Amazon corporate account now, so a lot of these charges, which were being done individually before, are actually being consolidated into an actual corporate account.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the dark skies, and on that 400,000, how's that budgeted out for the next X amount of years?
It's actually all budgeted in the 2020 budget, and it's split between the general fund and the water fund based off of the proportion of work that needs to be done to take some of that fiber up to the water department and also to the 9th Street facility.
Councilmember Meisner.
Okay. Oh, there he left. So the letter says that the original franchise agreement gave us access to specific fiber lines. What does that mean? Access? Is it that we can use the lines, or are we still going to pay for the lines? What is that statement saying?
Once we pay the construction cost, there will never be a cost that we pay again. We do control the equipment on the ends, but that plugs into the already existing equipment that we have. We've worked pretty hard over the past couple of years to upgrade a lot of our network, and it's ready to go for a project like this.
So you're telling me we're not going to pay for the fiber lines?
We're going to pay for the construction of fiber lines from our buildings to the already existing fiber.
Which is the 400,000?
Yes.
So I'm confused about the $1,500 cost.
That is an internet service that we will bring into City Hall, and then we'll be able to transport it across the fiber lines that are ours and eliminate all the other services at the other buildings.
So I think, one way to look at it is, we have our network between our own buildings, and then there's the network that connects us to the outside world. And that network that connects us to the outside world, to the internet, is that additional $1,500. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we're also currently paying for that interconnected network service now.
Correct.
And what are we paying for that service now?
About $1,200.
I think in the email I sent, it was closer to 1,100, but yeah, roughly right there in that ballpark.
I think that kind of goes back to some of we're still practicing archaic practices, and this is a chance for us to get back up to speed, literally.
Yes.
Yeah, as part of that fiber agreement, we have 12 strands of fiber that Unite gives us. I think with this project, we'll be utilizing maybe 1 or 2 of those strands. And there may be some opportunities in the future for actually monetizing or looking at potentially using some of those strands for future development projects.
Are you comfortable
Well, in closing, I would just say that in the future, if you've been budgeting this all year, I find it's concerning to me that it's presented to council as a final package after the fact. If you've been working on it all year, somewhere along the line, I would think for this kind of amount of money, somebody would update council in terms of us bringing our technology up to speed. I don't have a quorum with that. What I have a quorum with is, bam, all of a sudden, these things hitting us that we apparently been working at least the last 4 months on the 2020 budget, and really no mention of it.
We did mention the project as part of the 2020 budget hearings and did have some of that discussion at that time.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
All right, thank you. I'd like to, yes, absolutely. Thank you for all you do. 10A, approval of change in rate for Council of Government Self-Help Program. We do have Autumn Deaver here from the UCOG. Is it okay if we start with Autumn's presentation, and then we'll let Ryan report? Sorry. Go ahead, come on up.
Good evening. So I'm Autumn Deaver. I'm the Housing Director for the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments. And one of the programs that I oversee is the Self-Help Housing Program, which is a sweat equity home building program. And that is in partnership with USDA Rural Development, and it is to assist low-income families in buying homes. So what happens is we qualify these families. They're at 80% of the area median income. And that is, for a four-person family, that's equivalent to $54,500. So they make that or less. And then they get a loan through rural development to build the house. And then we work with them through the construction phase. So I have a construction supervisor that oversees the project and helps and teaches the families on how to do the work. The families do 65% of the labor. Anything that we're required to have a contractor for or a license for, like a plumber, electrician, we hire those out, but the family does the majority of all the other work. So they do roofing and siding, and they set windows and doors, and they pretty much do most of the house. They set cabinets and countertops and all kinds of other things. And through that, they normally get anywhere between $5,000 to $35,000 in equity when they're done, depending on the location, the house they picked, and those are the main things that affect that. So I'm asking today for a waiver of building permit fees, water tap fees, use tax, those items, because these are affordable houses and it is expensive to build anymore, and to help with those costs, I would like some assistance. So for example, the last time we had a group of homes was in 2015. And from that date till now, for our 3-bedroom houses, there's been an increase of about $27,000 to build the house. For our 4-bedroom house, it's about almost $31,000 increase in building and construction costs. So any assistance with that to help these low-income families be able to qualify to build the house would be much appreciated.
Ryan Stevens, do you have anything to add to that report?
Yeah, we've put forward a resolution that would discount the water tap fee, the meter pit fee, building permit fee, and use tax fees by 50% in an effort to be a partner with the self-housing program and try and get more affordable housing into the community.
So getting more affordable housing into the community, we all know that's greatly needed. And when I was at the Built for Zero convention with Autumn, actually that was a really big buzz about affordable housing. And I was able to sit down and kind of talk to her about what Canyon City can do, what kind of incentives we have to offer. And she really said, really, when it comes down to it, the only tools we really have to help to make housing affordable in Canyon City is opportunities like this to reduce those permit fees. And we're, it's not just for those with low income, it's also preventing homelessness, I guess, in a way, and making sure we can keep people into homes. But with that, we do have some questions or comments from council members. I'm going to start with Councilmember Gonzalez.
So I just have to give a big shout out to this, organization. My husband started as a supervisor years and years and years ago, and he would come home so proud because he was helping change lives. And over the years, I've watched homes go up. I've watched people out there on the weekends building their homes. Families with young children that he helped, families, you know, they were young families when they started, and you still see those families in those homes. It's very rewarding, but also it's very needed. So I'm an advocate, and I'm very proud to say that we have this program in our community and that we have people actively working towards making it better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Is there a time limit requirement for the folks to get all this help, that they must reside in that home for X amount of years? Or can they get this done in, say, 3 years, sell the property? Or is there restrictions with regards to that?
There is not a restriction for that. Based on our experience, we've been building these houses since 1999. We do not have a problem with the folks that build the house, want to sell it immediately. They normally want to live in the house and take advantage of all the work that they did, so we don't have a problem with that, but there is not a restriction.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Meisner.
This is a joint question for you and Mr. Adam. I seem to recall some history, maybe not, but wasn't there some drainage problems up in this area that was a massive problem for some people?
Yes. So we have been working on that, and it has taken us a great amount of time and effort to come up to a solution for that. And we have a signed agreement between us and the mobile home park to the west of the subdivision that we're working in. And we are just now waiting for the contractor to go in and do the work. We're trying to fit in his schedule.
What's the city's involvement with that plan?
Zero.
Okay.
It is essentially a dispute between the two property owners. It was, we're trying to stay out of that.
We've been trying to stay out of it for a long time.
Any other comments from council or questions? I'd like to call for a motion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve Central Colorado Housing Self-Help Housing Program. What do we call this?
Resolution 3.
Oh, Resolution 3.
I second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Meisner.
You had indicated that you were requesting a waiver, and it appears that the city has countered with a 50% discount. Have we communicated, has there been any communication about this counter offer, or is that news to everybody tonight?
I don't believe it's news to Autumn. We've seen each other a couple times since that initial request came in. She asked to see what we could do, and this is the offer that we put forward. This is what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. So what does this 50% amount to about? Approximately.
There's you can see some savings in the water tap fee of about $3,500 or so. The building permit fee, 1% of the project cost. Roughly the project cost is about $180, $200.
It's about 180.
Yeah.
And then use taxes.
And then the use tax.
Half of the use tax.
which use tax is normally about $3,500 to us.
So it'd be about half of that. So that building permit fee would probably be around $1,000 or just less than $1,000. So in total, you're, probably about savings of around $5,000 or so, probably in that $5,000 to $6,000 range per house. So you got 6 houses there.
All right, I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Okay, Brian Stevens, in my enthusiasm for the agenda tonight, I skipped the administrator's report. Would you like to offer that now?
Absolutely. Mayor and members of council, you mentioned Jim Johnson receiving the Guy U. Harding Award at the Chamber banquet. We are very proud of the work he does, and he's a community member that also serves on the Rec District Board as well. So he has dedicated a lot of time to that. I want to congratulate Tarla Daniel, who's been promoted to accounting manager, and then we have some new employees that have started. Christian Nyberg has joined the finance department and the sales tax office, and Kyle Hans has joined the police department. He's attending the police academy right now. Urban renewal notifications, as I think I mentioned at the last meeting, those postcards have gone out. I've had over 30 conversations with people who have called in asking questions about urban renewal and why they received the postcards, and I think all of those conversations have been very positive, and we're keeping people in the loop with next steps for that project as well. We're starting a bi-monthly development review committee. It's not something that the city has done before, but economic development, planning and zoning, the engineering office, and the building departments will come together twice a month to talk about projects that are in the pipeline, both from the very early stages of economic development, being a prospect, all the way through CO, and walking through each of those projects on a bi-monthly basis. There will be opportunities for us to bring in the utility providers as well, or the folks that are applying, the developers, if they have questions or if we have questions for them during those times. Of course, that doesn't mean that we're going to wait until those meetings to schedule things if we do need to have some conversation with any of those developers. The lighting at the Centennial Park Bridge is complete. There's many thousands of different programmings available for the new lights at the bridge, and we'll be setting up different holiday colors and themes based on the time of year and what's going on. We've been chosen by Downtown Colorado Inc. to participate in their Challenge Studio at their annual conference in April. That means that we'll be working with them and their partners, the CU Denver Public Affairs Master's students, to work on a problem that affects our downtown, and working towards a solution towards that, whatever that issue might be. Our museum and library continue to host a lot of public events and different programs. The museum had 90 people attend their fish and wildlife program. I understand they had to turn people away at the door because it was so popular. They're going to be looking for larger venues for future programs, because this is becoming a very frequent occurrence for us. And then operational update, the water department had patched three leaks since the last time that we met, and the addresses for those are included in the administrator report.
Thank you, Ryan. Councilmember Meisner?
Relative to item 4, it seems like that's an issue that some council has been requesting for a while, but what kind of follow-up is going to happen, or what's planned relative to follow-up and updating council relative to number 4?
Yeah, I think we can certainly put together a report or minutes from those meetings and provide that to council to so you can kind of see where some of that development and where those programs are going. I think, certainly if there are any concerns that come out of those development meetings, certainly we'd be letting council know and, informing you of any hiccups that we see coming along the road.
I would ask, Madam Mayor, that there at least be a quarterly report to council in terms of the issues and successes of those projects. I think it's important from both ends for us to be able to be aware of what issues are going on that our staff are being challenged with, and at the same time that we are aware of what successes staff have had in terms of getting those projects moved through our system.
I think that's probably pretty reasonable to request that.
Yeah, I think
We would like to definitely see those reports and show validation that as we have those meetings together, that whatever was recommended at that time of the meeting is consistent throughout the entire process, and there's no going back and saying, oh, wait a minute, by the way. And if that does happen, we want to know what it was that was missed and why and who did it.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
So I had a couple people ask me, just because they had talked to somebody who'd gotten the postcard about the urban renewal, so they didn't feel it was in their best interest to call and find out what this information was about. But they're curious. Do we have information on our website? Or?
We do.
Okay.
There's a urban renewal page with frequently asked questions and several handouts.
And it explains what the development is about, and
It explains, urban renewal and.
is it kind of like the slides that were available that night that we went?
It was,
okay,
yes.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for.
That's a really good question, Councilman Gonzalez, because I've had the same number of people like, I got this postcard. Does this mean my property is in blight?
Yes, right.
I'm,
They're
concerned, or I don't want to say quite offended, but just make them realize that the borderline for what's considered blight is incredibly broad. It's really about the bigger picture of Canyon City development, especially along the river corridor. And it's not going to cost them anything. This is future investment opportunities.
And right now, we're just looking for a committee,
No, not even a committee. So this is, less,
Qualification.
Kind of lesson learned from previous efforts, but this is just notification, letting people know that their property is in the study area. So there's nothing, they didn't receive the card because there's something wrong with their property. It's just their property happens to be in the study area. We're just notifying them that the study is going on. And as Mayor Smith mentioned, that can be any number of factors can be attributed to blight. High crime rates, burnt out or dilapidated buildings, to something as simple as lots that have weird lot lines or too small for development. So the state has all those things outlined, and we're just going through a survey right now to identify and see how many of those we have in the study area.
Thank you. I'm glad that I have a place to refer them to. Also, yay on the DCI, I have to say. I left that conference with a lot of enthusiasm, and I'm really excited that we've been chosen to participate. Who are we? Are we inviting people from our community to help?
Yeah, we will be putting together a committee as well, and I think there's certainly lots of opportunities there. Downtown Business Alliance had a meeting a couple weeks ago, it might have been last week, where there was renewed vigor in their efforts and very highly attended. So I think there's lots of opportunities to bring in the rest of the community into this.
And I did issue an invitation today for a representative from the DBA to attend. They're looking at their schedule to see. If not done, then we'll send a representative.
So they could. Registration is still open.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome point that you make, that we want to make sure that it's just not the city getting enthusiastic and excited about the opportunities and programs that we want to pursue, but that they're experiencing that together with us, and we can join in together in those conversations.
I was very encouraged when we left there, so I'm excited to see that. I'm just excited. Thank you.
Fantastic. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ryan, on number 8, just a couple of questions there. Would it be possible for the water department to tell us maybe line size, maybe age of the line, if they're going to be reporting leaks. I mean, the question that I hope some information like that might address is there commonality among the leaks that we need to be aware of? And, you know, we've heard the water department come in and talk about some of the age of the system, and it might be nice to know a little bit more about these to help us be aware of if we've got something that's building or something like that as far as a problem.
Yeah, we can provide some more details, absolutely.
Councilmember Reed.
Ryan, going back to number 4 for the bi-monthly development review committee, would there be any strategic advantage or help that it would possibly give to have council show up for some of those meetings to help out? I understand the parts of reports, but I don't really like reports. So if there's something that we can do that's a little bit more immediate if things come up, I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think if something comes up in the Development Review Committee and we need to have some council representatives, we can certainly work on, some type of protocol for that.
The reason why I ask is because oftentimes we have conversations with developers that maybe haven't gotten to that point yet. And so there might be a little bit of assistance, insight.
Absolutely. We can also use some of those Development Review Committee meetings as more of a pre-app type of situation as well, where we can answer some of those questions if they aren't quite there yet.
Thank you.
Catherine, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so you're going to need to be careful, though, because applications for land use development is a quasi-judicial decision. I think you kind of went over that in your council orientation. And you're not really permitted to have any ex parte communications with a developer or someone who opposes or the proponent of the development because it taints the process. And so you could be challenged on your ultimate decision if you would get involved in those things. So you have to tread very carefully in that
So
arena.
my understanding was this is before there was a process, more along the lines of someone.
It'd have to be pretty early on, I think, prior to a pre-application meeting. If you're having the mention of the pre-application meeting kind of concerns me, because then they're really looking at applying, and I think that's
So is that what the purpose of this committee is then, is when they're in the
sounds like it's
application?
moving through the whole thing.
We'll be going through the entire process, projects in all stages of development. So from a prospect that might just have reached out to economic development, all the way to a project that might be in land use development or going to public hearing through the building project process as well. So there's all different phases of the development process we're going to be taking a look at and going through this process. And as Catherine mentioned, there's certain parts of that council kind of has to be hands off on.
That makes sense. I was taking it as like the initial portion of the pipeline, like, hi, I'm so-and-so.
No.
Welcome to Canyon City.
So I think traditionally the city has kind of been siloed, where projects either goes to plan and zoning, then it goes to the next stage, then it goes to the next stage. And the idea behind this Development Review Committee is to get city departments in the room together and make sure we know what's coming, and then just kind of shepherd this through the entire process as a whole.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Councilmember Meisner.
2 quick questions. Back to the urban renewal. Who sent out those notices?
Those notices were sent out by our consultant that's helping us with the study.
And so were those notices sent out to the potential blighted properties, or to all property owners within a particular area?
All properties within the study area.
And then question number 2, I'm a little surprised that our project on the eastern edge of the city is not identified in the administrator's report in terms of what's happening with that issue.
With the hotel?
Yeah.
I didn't think that needed to be in this particular report.
When are we going to address it?
I don't know that there's, I don't know that there's something that needs to be addressed. I was simply informing council of where the status of where that's at, and letting you know that there were some concerns there from that particular project.
And Jim, I recommend that you probably sit down one-on-one with Ryan and and have that conversation.
Well, I want to know what council's feeling is on those kinds of issues. How do we go about getting that accomplished versus maybe
Well,
you and him?
With
or-
respect to the private property owner's feelings and business plan as well. You have to be cognizant and respectful of that as well in a public meeting.
Really?
And the way that we do that is by generalization, you know, is by generalizing a particular situation so that it's not identifiable to a particular property owner or property project, something like that. That's, if appropriate, that's how we get it in front of council, I think.
I mean, you bring the issue to council, and I have no idea what's been decided. What has been, did you two apparently make a decision in terms of what needed to be done?
That is not in my jurisdiction.
I don't.
So where's it at?
I don't know that there was anything that needed to be decided. I was, again, informing council that there were concerns in regards to that particular project. But again, as I had emailed you, that was not a, you know, additional fee that we were charging. That was, you know, something specific that, you know, that project had to pay outside of the realms of what we're doing from a city process.
So I would recommend, again, that you sit down and talk to Ryan one-on-one. If there's other council members that want to sit down as a group, then we can have that, they can call for a special meeting. I do want to add a couple of things on to your report. I thought that might be good to just mention, because this is a perfect opportunity in a public meeting to add that. Is that last Wednesday we had the 2018 Building Code meeting. That was led by Kathy Olsch. It was very well attended, and the participants were very vocal and giving their input. Don't you think Mandy was there as well as John Hamrick? And there's some really good feedback that was offered, and I just want to reiterate that we are listening and taking notes and making sure that we respect those comments.
And I just want to point out as well, sometimes, you know, when I write these reports, a lot of these meetings or emails have not happened yet. So I write these reports almost 2 weeks in advance sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. So, but this is an exciting one. Council Member Reed.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what you said with the meeting that we did have. I don't even remember when it was now, but going over the 2018 building codes. And I just wanted to say too, again, that we are listening, and we really did appreciate the attendance that we had. The feedback from the builders and from community members, I think, was invaluable. And I just wanted to encourage everyone to continue to have those conversations, to continue to come to those meetings, and to voice opinions, and to share, because really shaping Canyon City requires all of us. And the people that were in that room had areas of expertise that, frankly, we don't. And so it's many hands make light work, and so I was very thankful for everybody that took the time out of their day, because it wasn't a short meeting. So
Yeah, it was lengthy, but there was some excellent feedback. And Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Oh, I want to say that Councilwoman Reed stole all my thunder, but but I did want to commend staff. It was really a great meeting. It was a discussion. It was not a command and control meeting. It was, here are options. What are your feelings about options? And like Councilwoman Reed says, there was a lot of expertise in the room that had opinions on that were well worth listening to.
And we do plan on bringing that to the Vision Committee meeting in February to have a deeper discussion with all of council and kind of talk through some of those discussions as well.
Yeah, I look forward to that. And then just another kudos, we had the Community Recreation Center Market Study focus groups last week as well. I was able to attend one of them. And again, there was an excellent group of folks there of all ages, demographics, backgrounds, and they all gave excellent feedback. It's so much so that I think we're rethinking some of our strategy behind it. And so I think it's really has been valuable asset to us in shaping our conversation for a ballot measure. Councilmember Dennehy.
And, excuse me, I also wanted to put out a few kudos to the museum, because I was at that Fish and Wildlife program. It was packed house. They were doing everything they could to provide seating for everyone, trying to cool the building down, and Kudos to Zach Holder and Bob Croce because they stayed a lot longer than they needed to. But it was very encouraging to see so many people, and the presentation was fantastic. And I think it will be neat when our museum can start looking for other venues to, and we increase and get more public involvement with what our museum has to offer.
Thank you, Councilmember Dennehy. I would like to wrap up the administrator's report at this time and move on to another report from the Royal Gorge Bridge. And I'd like to invite Brent Hargrave to come up, and will you please introduce the staff that you've brought with you as well?
Of course. Sure. All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, City Administrator Stevens. Has a nice ring to it. Congratulations, Ryan. We enjoy working with you, and you are the Economic Development Director, and we look forward to working with you in the future as City Administrator. City Council, thank you for having me. My name is Brent Hargrave. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Royal Gorge Bridge and Park. With me is Jeremy Boswell, our Director of Operations, as well as Jerry Nines, who is our General Manager and Controller. Usually around January every year, this gives us an opportunity to meet the new City Council members, introduce you to us and the park, give you a little bit of a year in review, and also allows you to ask any questions that you guys may have. If you have questions later that you come up with, feel free to send me an email or to Jerry or Jeremy. Ryan has all of our contact information. So anyways, in 2019 was a good year. It wasn't a great year. We had 352,174 visitors to the park in 2019. That is 12,000 less than last year, 2018. Total revenues over 13 million. City payment was $2,726,232, which is, like I said, 2018 we had 12,000 less people, or 2019 we had 12,000 less people than we did in 2018. We were able to still pay the city 12,000 more than the previous year. That is a testament to our staff. That is a testament to our managers, to Jerry and Jeremy, and everything that they have done this year. This year was like I said, it was a good year. It was not a great year. Reasons for that, I'm not a weatherman, but weather played a huge part. In June, I can't remember the last time being here in June, I had to wear a coat most of the time. It was just a weird year weather-wise. We talked to sponsorship partners that we had. We talked to other companies, venues in the area, in Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak region, and everyone was saying the same thing. It's just a soft year, and weather was a big factor in that. I talked to Doug Price, Colorado Springs CVB president, and he had the same sentiment. Everyone that was an outdoor attraction had a little bit of a soft year. The attractions that did particularly well were attractions that were not weather related. They were more indoor attractions. So just keeping that in mind for 2019. During the year, we completed the Via Ferrata. We had 665 tours done in 2019. We expect a heck of a lot more this year. Reasons for that being marketing. We feel like we know how to market a little better. We know how to operate it a little better. The building is completed. It's going to be done for a full operating year. And we're just looking forward to a good year on the Via Ferrata. So everybody that's done the Via Ferrata, we've had great positive feedback. I know some of you have done the Via Ferrata as well. It has been a huge success in terms of experience. It's giving our visitors, our guests, a totally different way to experience the park, and we are very excited with the potential the Via Ferrata has in future years. We also completed rebuilding of the water intake located down at the river. That water intake hadn't been touched for a very long time, even after the fire. The water intake was really not addressed during the rebuild. So this year, we had to update the pumps, shrouds, electrical, and reinforcement of the building. Total cost of that project was over $350,000. It was a pretty big project, and actually Jeremy was very instrumental in that project. Other projects were improvements to the park, such as asphalt, design schematics for future ideas, and other miscellaneous improvements, all totaling just over $200,000. In 2020, we scheduled other major projects to center around guest improvement. We're not putting in any big capital expenditures like a Via Ferrata, but there are things that are going to be of great improvement for guest satisfaction. We're going to be adding shade structures. We're going to be improving Elk Park, where our concerts used to be. We're improving the irrigation there. We're putting shade there. We're putting new seating there so that our guests have just a better experience overall at the park. And we're also doing other shade improvements around the park, and those current projections for capital spending, as well as others, total around $440,000 for this year. So that is our year in review, and would love to open it up to any questions.
Councilmember Meisner.
As part of your intake water upgrade or maintenance, was that line size changed, or is it still the same?
No, the line size is still the same.
With the same line?
Yes, sir.
What's that size? 3-inch or 2-inch?
Jeremy?
Two 2-inch parallel lines.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you. Did I understand you correctly that you're making improvements to the area where the concerts used to be held? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
No plans in the future for concerts?
We would love to put concerts back. Probably would not be in the terms of a series where it's just, maybe one night a month. The problem was bringing people in and then having them drive down back from the park at late night hours just wasn't really working for us. We would in the future like to do something in terms of a 3-day festival, probably in the months of September or October, and do a larger concert series where you can do camping. I mean, we have a lot of land out there that we can use. So that is a possibility that we will be looking into in the future.
The High Mountain Hay Fever held over in Westcliff. They do that. They have big parking lots, big fields actually, that they dedicate to RV parking. Mm-hmm. It is dry RV parking, so there's no power, there's no sanitary facilities. What you have, bring with you. One of the things that one of the events that used to happen in the community that was pretty successful was the Belvedere Blues Fest, and those were kind of like day-long events where they brought in blues musicians. The Durango Blues Train, there seems to be a pretty successful version of that particular thing. Just things that to think about. Those, something like that would seem to me would be possibly bringing in a whole lot of people.
Yeah, totally agree. And that is the goal: bringing more people to the park, bringing more people to the region, to the city. So not only that the company and the city benefit, but also the entire community as a whole. That is one of our major goals.
Any other questions or comments from council? You grilled Ryan really well.
Yeah.
I would like to know maybe some of your plans for other 2020 events or special items to look forward to.
Well, we don't want to give a lot of what we're talking about in a public forum. It is a competitive area. But we are talking about, we are looking into the idea of a Christmas event in future years. We're trying to run numbers, seeing if the numbers make sense for us. Drawing people in from Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Denver even, into the area during the holidays to try to boost our numbers that way. Also, we still have Boo at the Bridge. It's become, You know, we started Boo at the Bridge as an event just to kind of give back to the kids in the communities, in the rural areas also, because we didn't feel like they had a great way to go trick-or-treating. And that was, that event has actually just done gangbusters for us. Not in terms of revenue, but just in terms of people coming and experiencing the park and businesses coming and getting their names out there. It's just really become a great community event that we're really proud of. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Smith.
I wanted to piggyback off that and commend you guys for Boo at the Bridge. I think it gets bigger every year, and it's something that my kiddos especially look forward to. And it's kind of become the only trick-or-treating we do, because if my kids keep bringing home more candy, I'm going to eat it. So, thank you for that.
Well, we plan for it to continue growing, so we're very excited about it.
Councilmember Meisner.
2 questions. You said 665 tours from the Via Ferrata?
Yes, sir.
Does that mean like paid participants that went through that course? Is that how you're referring to that?
Yes.
So
right.
Is that 665 people or 665 tours with multiple people?
665 people. We also had other tours from a group standpoint and things of that nature, and group sales that aren't in that number.
Okay, and then I think the biggest question that I get asked is, update us on the incline.
As of right now, we don't have an update on the incline. We're still looking at ways to get people down to the river. One of the fact of the matter is the incline, to redo the incline, is going to be terribly expensive. We're talking at like $12 million expensive. To us, it doesn't make sense to replace the incline with another incline. We are looking at other avenues. One way that makes a little more sense for all involved would be a ski lift system. So we are looking at all those things.
Do I have another question? I thought I heard rumor, I'm going to call it rumor, about, I don't know how to diplomatically say this, but some safety netting. Well,
That's a rumor.
okay, good.
Any other comments or questions from council? I know we really appreciate the management of the bridge. Is a major revenue source for our city and a taxpayer savings to our citizens, as it helps pay for our parks and fixing potholes and multiple of things, and it's a fantastic partnership. Also just want to say that I did have an opportunity to reach out to the county commissioners, and they are willing to sit down and have a conversation about County Road 3A.
Okay.
And we'll see where that takes us.
Great.
But at
We look
least
forward to it.
at least we'll have that conversation started up again.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks,
your
Brett.
time. Thanks for all that you do. It's always a pleasure to go to the bridge.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We are now moved on to item number 11, the introduction and first reading of Ordinance 1, Series of 2020, concerning the increase of the stormwater management fees. Who's going to give us a report for
We'll
that?
call Tammy and Adam up to introduce the ordinance.
So, tonight we have an ordinance for increasing the stormwater rate, and we discussed it at the January 8th general government meeting. For those of you that were not there, we went through a number of options, 4 to be exact, on different strategies as far as raising the rates. And the first option was an arbitrary increase of 5%. The second option was a 9% increase that was based on the recommendations by our consultant that had done the rate study in 2017. The third option, and both those options, A and B, would just go towards increases in operating costs. The third option, option C, was an increase of 16%, and that was not for operating costs, that was for an expansion of service. The interest there was in replacing our vac truck that is constantly broken down and in need of repair, to replace that, and as well as cover 2 full-time positions to run that truck throughout the year, and to better assist keeping the infrastructure that we have in better shape and open and clear so that it's ready for storm events. And then the fourth option was a combination of B and C, providing enough money for the truck and the employees as well as an operating expense increase. So the recommendation from General Government Committee was option C for the new vac truck and the 2 full-time employees. If approved, the rates would be effective April 1st. There was some interest at the General Government meeting to make that effective the second quarter. This is where we got the April 1st from. And then it would take some time to generate enough revenue to actually make the lease purchase of the truck. And then again, not having any need for the employees until that time, we would be looking at like a late 2020 purchase or early 21. Anything to add?
Nope, I think you covered it all.
All right.
Okay, questions or comments from City Council? Councilmember Meisner.
Well, I suggest we refrain from using the study recommendation of 9% because we've missed that whole boat. I mean, we've gone a couple of years where we didn't do the 9%, and to use the study results, we would need to be in that probably, I don't know, 13, 14%, just to recover from what we didn't do. So I think, at least with council, we need to understand that when he talks about the study recommendation of 9%, that was 9% per year.
Right.
Is that not correct?
That's correct.
And we've gone a couple of years where we didn't do 9%. So the 9% per year no longer really applies because we've lost that percentage. And it's kind of like sleeping. You never recover it unless you increase the rate appropriately.
Do you have another comment?
Sure.
Okay.
We had talked about general government. From my perspective, it's really critical that those 2 FETs, we are documenting to council in terms of specifically what those FETs are doing with their hours. And I'd like to see some kind of a quarterly report, which you're saying can happen through whatever you call that, that I want to be able to say in 6 months or at the end of 2020, with whatever hours we've had with those stormwater people, that 99% of their time was spent stormwater and not something else. I realize they have plenty to do, but I also realize how things happen where, you know, you have available manpower and you got to shift projects. But we need to be able to come back publicly and say, these are stormwater employees, and that's where they're spending their time in whatever form or fashion.
Yep, absolutely. That's the intent, is to have these 2 people, that's their full funding will come from the stormwater utility, and that's what they will do is stormwater work.
We do have a request to speak to council. I'd like to invite Dennis Weed to the podium, please.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Unfortunately, 3 minutes isn't going to be even close enough to what I need to say, so I'll try and summarize this. But the end of the story is going to be that I would like to request that you table this increase and have some more conversation about this. So I'll just get that out first. And I'm sorry I wasn't aware of the meeting in January, because I could have had a lot of this conversation there in a much more informal setting. So I believe Frank Hawkes was on council at the time the original stormwater fee was introduced, or yeah. And I was on council at the same time. And I can't explain how, and I've been told that's not the case, but I know I'm right. When the stormwater fee was initially passed, those funds were meant to fund stormwater improvement projects. Somehow, over the course of time, 100% of this stormwater fee has been diverted to administrative costs. Every bit of it. When that stormwater fee was first passed, and I don't know, that's at least 10 years ago, I believe, it was to generate $1 million a year to be used to fund stormwater improvement projects. And that hasn't happened. So what we're seeing now is, and in this recent increase, I don't see anything in here that says money is being set aside to actually fund stormwater projects. Every bit of it's going to administrative. More FTEs, buying a truck, all this stuff. But you're not solving the problem. You're just spending it all administratively. So I see that as a real problem now. And the last time this came up, I mean in 2018, there was 2 stormwater increases. It was in the memo. There was a 100% increase in the stormwater fee in February, and then there was another, I'm guessing it was 9% or something like that in November. And so this is going to be another increase on top of that. At that time, I came to council and said, this is just patently unfair to businesses. Businesses in town generate, our city runs primarily on sales tax. And something like 2/3 of our city operating budget comes from sales tax. And those sales taxes are generated by businesses. And, take this off. Just some numbers, and these are things that I kind of pulled out of my head that I think I remember from the last time I talked about this. But there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 commercial properties in Canyon City. And there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 non-commercial / residential properties in Canyon City. All right, so there's 9 or 10 times as many, or well, 1/10 of all the properties in Canyon City are commercial, yet they pay 50% of the stormwater fees. And the same thing, the commercial properties in town pay 4 times the property tax rate that the residential properties are paying. I mean, this is just piling on businesses. And, you know, I know Raft Ellis, they did this report. And honestly, I think it was a waste of money. I think their approach to solving the problem was simplistic, it was unimaginative, and it didn't take into consideration a lot of things that I'm talking about. And at the time, the last time I had talked about this, I had proposed, and I came with an awful lot of facts and figures that, and this is done other places, and you know, the objection was, well, you can't do that, it's illegal or whatever, and it's like, that's a bunch of BS, because it is done other places. Well, my proposal was that the stormwater fee be split into 2 parts. A per parcel fee that everybody pays, regardless of the size of your parcel, and it's the same for everybody. And an impervious surface fee, which would vary depending on the size of your property or the size of the impervious surface you have on your particular piece of property. Now, again, another one of these things that's probably worth noting is that commercial properties, partly because of what they are and partly by fiat from the city, have enormously more impervious surfaces. The biggest thing being commercial properties are required to have paved parking, which adds an enormous cost to the stormwater fee. That's why 700 properties pay half of the stormwater fees in the city. So by having a split process where you have the per parcel fee and an impervious surface fee, it makes it fairer for the businesses. And like I said, the businesses are the ones that are getting piled on here. And then, I mean, personally, I think there ought to be some sort of consideration for businesses that have impervious surfaces, because those impervious surfaces are for the benefit of everybody. You know, it's not like the businesses said, oh boy, you know, it's going to be great to have paved parking here. The reason they have big parking lots is because the citizens in the city use those parking lots too. And, you know, another thing, I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like a third of all the impervious surface in the city is streets. And they don't contribute anything to the stormwater fee. And that's not taken into consideration either. And then I guess finally my last comment would be that there are a number of properties in the city that have really unique situations. I happen to be one of them, where when we built our project, we were required to build a stormwater detention facility. There's two kinds of ponds you can have: a retention, which slows the release of water down, and a detention facility, which captures and never releases the water. All right? So in my particular case, and there's a half a dozen others in the city, these properties contribute nothing, absolutely zero, to the stormwater issue. And yet, that property, probably about, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 25% of my piece of property is off limits for me to use for any useful purpose, because I had to set it aside for a stormwater pond that has never had more than a few inches of water in it. And I don't know, it was about a year ago, something like that, there was a proposal that came to council to develop a credit system for those properties that have detention facilities that actually contribute nothing. And I don't know what happened to it. When I talked to the city administrator and the finance director just prior to that meeting, it was almost a guarantee this is going to pass, no problem. Anyhow, it got to council and got shot down. And all I'm saying is there is more creative, more imaginative ways to deal with this stormwater. And the part that really is annoying is we're not solving any stormwater problems. We're not doing anything to improve the stormwater situation. All of the money is being diverted to administrative costs. And that was never the intent when this was first started. Granted, you know, sure, we sweep streets and we clean sewers and we do all kinds of stuff, but we did that long before there was ever a stormwater fee. That was just a part of operating the city. And now somehow those
Okay, Dennis,
funds...
your time is up.
Okay. So I'd ask you to table it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. We definitely appreciate your comments and value your input. I know you always have the commercial interests at your heart and have a lot of experience in city council. Right now, we'll turn questions over to Councilmember Smith. You're going to pass? Councilmember Gonzalez.
So, listening to Dennis, and I've listened to Dennis a lot, and I appreciate all of his input. I feel like my hands are tied here, because I feel like we need to have more revenue in order to fund our stormwater projects. But then I also hear that over 10 years ago, we were, funds were meant to fund stormwater projects. And we have not been doing this for 10 years. And so I'm concerned about raising rates at this point. If we don't know where our money's going, I don't know where it's going, I feel like I need a breakdown of what's being funded. How are we funding administrative costs, since that's coming up? Where is our money going? Before we raise any more prices or any more rates, I'd like to see where this money's going, because this is going to continue to be a conversation that comes up. I don't care how many times we raise rates. That's just my point. That's where I'm going to settle.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to point out that administrative cost is a little bit of a misnomer. Because we have stormwater compliance costs and we have stormwater control costs.
We've had it broken down.
We've had it
We have
broken down.
extensively gone over the numbers. It's
Right.
there and available.
Yes.
We've done it.
But the point is that there's really two stormwater buckets. One is compliance related. We have to comply with our EPA essentially. It's issued by the state of Colorado, but originates from the EPA. We have to comply with that permit. That's where a lot of what are called administrative costs go to compliance with the permit. In addition, we have the stormwater quantity problem, the other bucket, that where when stormwater runs off, we get flooding in different areas of the city. That's where the big bucks really come in. If we were just dealing with compliance and not the quantity issues, we wouldn't be looking at increases like this. I mean, if we didn't have to fund stormwater quantity issues, we're pretty good on the compliance side in terms of our funding. I believe that's correct. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so if we didn't have the quantity issues, we probably wouldn't be raising fees. But we have the quantity issues, and we do have to address those, as well as the compliance issues. Those are not optional, those are mandatory. And the issue with the quantity issues is that the elephant in the room, so to speak, is that if we cannot show that we're addressing those issues, we can end up just like Colorado Springs, where they have mandatory, or they have not just a 9% or a 10% or even a 15%, but a mandatory fee that applied all the way across the city, which was really it was mandated essentially from the EPA that they would start addressing the stormwater quantity issues. And that was big dollars on that, and we sure don't want to do
$5 per household, but what was it for businesses?
I don't know that I have the details of where they did that.
The reason why it's more for commercial businesses is because they have more impervious surface. It's the exact same rate. It's just that they have more impervious surface. Councilmember Dennehy.
I have a question, because I think Dennis did bring up something, and, I don't know if we've ever looked at this, and I don't know, Tammy and them can say, what if there was a set fee, an assessment fee, and then a different rate for the impervious surface? I know from my own experience in working with some ditch water and agriculture-wise, that's basically how that's assessed, which brings it to more equitable for each person. And, I don't know if we've ever even looked at that option.
We have looked at that option, and Dennis is right. Some time ago, we looked into that in great detail. I think what diverted the attention from that was we, as I discussed at the general government meeting, as we're doing it now is not sustainable anyway. And so there was a discussion of moving to a stormwater district format. And then with that, of course, there could be a base rate fee, plus a usage type fee, monthly type thing, where it could be split, property tax versus utility fee, and those sorts of things you can do as a district. So that's my take on why we diverted our attentions from breaking up and working really hard on doing what we're doing here anyway, because we know that it doesn't matter really how you shift the dollars. At this point in time, there's still not enough money to do what needs to be done. So at this point in time, this is just more of a stopgap until we can move forward with something that's more sustainable. That's why the discussion doesn't stop here. The way I see it, this is just where this gets us through to the next step of what we need to continue to work on as far as either a district formation or some other mechanism to make it work.
But up until that time, is this something that we can, I don't know if we need to table this for a couple of weeks to see if there is any other resolutions that we can come up with this. We're trying to make our city a bit more business friendly, and this is, I understand that, yeah, they're a business, but they are taking the brunt of this, and I understand that.
Well, we could pull the minutes of that discussion, but if I recall, the discussion was that the city council at the time did not want the residents to have to subsidize that on the behalf of the businesses, and that was the reason for the vote. But we could certainly go back and have a look at that and have the discussion again.
Yeah, we have the materials, we have the information, we have the YouTube videos. This is something we have talked about considerably. Dennis, how long ago, what time frame during that 10-year period were you on city council? Probably most of that?
Yes.
So Dennis has been on city council for a considerable amount of that time, and he was part of that decision-making process that set up that stormwater utility underfunded and approved administration costs. And I'm just going to say that. I also want to say that this council, we're doing boots on the ground, getting projects done. And it was a little bit of misinformation saying that all of these rates are going towards administration only, because it is not. Our last stormwater rate for last year went towards getting the bonds. You haven't seen it yet because it's under engineering design and the bidding process, but we are doing actual projects to mitigate stormwater flooding on 15th Street, on 9th Street, East Main, and Dawson Park, and Wolf Park. And in most of those instances, we're going from the river and working north. Those are all $8 million worth of projects that are being done to reduce stormwater flooding. The project that we are looking to the future, again, you're actually going to be seeing vehicles and workers on the streets cleaning out stormwater pipes. That is preventative maintenance. It's regular maintenance. It's preventative maintenance. It's something that has been neglected all of those years. When you said that things should have been done towards projects, that should have been getting done all of those years, and it hasn't been. And now our pipes are clogged throughout entire Canyon City, and this council is making a decision to say, if we want to reduce stormwater flooding, we actually have to invest in actually getting something done. And you will see, if we approve this, you will see that truck and those workers out 5 days a week, every single week, and the entire year working for Canyon City and the stormwater. That is projects that is work towards those flooding projects. So I want to make sure that's loud and clear. We're just not going for larger bureaucracy. We're going towards actually doing something about the problem that's been done that no one else has had the courage to do before, because it is difficult to move forward. It is difficult to do that. We had a comment from someone made to me coming in the door, like, I thought that this place would be packed full of people, and it's not. And when I first was getting introduced to stormwater and all of these issues, I started, and all these arguments I would hear, because this room used to be packed. And I'd go to other communities and say, well, what are you doing? What about this whole stormwater thing and these utilities and these fees? And this is such a burden. And they just looked at me like I was straight out of the dark ages. Like, we have been doing this for decades. This is standard. This is a service that is required, and it's necessary, and it's a service for our community, and nobody even questions it anymore. And I wonder if we're starting to get to that level in Canyon City where they realize that stormwater needs to be seriously addressed. And this isn't a tax. This is a nonprofit utility. We're only raising fees according to what projects need to be done. And even what we're proposing is so underfunded, it's just barely making a difference. So I just really felt like I needed to get that off my chest a little bit. We really are doing things for a community. We can have conversations about and we probably need to have conversations about the impact on commercial businesses. We have had that extensively. I think City Council, before the next 2 weeks, needs to have access to those to review and to study, because a lot of them weren't here for that. And they can decide. A lot can happen between today and then 2 weeks. I probably have more to say, but I'll save it because I know that we have Councilmember Jaquez and then Meisner that would like to say something.
I was on city council but when this first came about for the stormwater fee, it was only designed to maintain what the federal government said we had to do with our stormwater system. And if we did not do that, we would have a heavy monthly penalty fine. And that's what we approved back then, just to get the federal government off our back so we can keep operating. It was not even designed to do any kind of improvements. It was just to do what the federal government says. If you don't do these minimum requirements, you will be fined severely. And that's what went by at that time frame, because I was on council, and I remember that wholeheartedly. It was strictly for that purpose. And I was not at the general government meeting that was attended, but I agree with Mr. Meisner. If we pass this thing here, we do need a quarterly report of those FTEs as to the expenses are there. Because folks, we've kicked this thing around over and over till a lot of us are bruised from kicking it around so much. And I think it's time, hey, let's do our job and let's get this done. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Meisner.
I sympathize and somewhat understand Dennis's position. But, Dennis had mentioned a flat fee or a flat partial fee plus an impervious surface fee. But I'm not sure I understand that concept, because if we did a flat fee, I assume that would then reduce the impervious fee by some decimal point. But then the impervious fee would then be equally applied to residential and to commercial businesses. It seems like we're back in the same dilemma that I pay for my driveway and my rooftop, and you pay for your parking lot, which means you're going to pay 10 times more than I am because you have much more impervious surface than I do. What I've continued, what in the past, what I've expressed some concerns about is the fact that if I'm a new business, I'm required, in most cases, to pave a parking lot. I do not have to pave it with asphalt. I do have the option of covering that parking lot with an impervious product. Is that correct?
Pervious product, yes.
With a pervious product.
Now, what those products are, I don't know, but I think I just had a conversation this week with a business owner that's considering a large lot covering, and that was the issue in terms of that they want to pave it. And I said, you need to get with the city and look at other alternatives, because you don't necessarily have to pave it. Because if you pave it, you're going to pay the stormwater fee. If you use a impervious surf product, then you're not going to be subject to that particular fee, and it can be substantial. But I think you can play with a whole rate system, and I think in the end, an individual with a larger impervious surface area is going to pay more than a person that doesn't, which means most commercial businesses are going to pay more than most residential businesses. And I don't like that, but we're using the same rate for all of those people.
Councilmember Reed.
So I mostly have a question, and I think Adam will be the one who can answer it. So Dennis mentioned the different ponds that they can have the retention pond, and you said it's a detention pond, is that what you said, Dennis? Does that help the stormwater flow around it? Is it just help that one specific property? Is it solving or helping towards overall stormwater in that area?
Yeah, so commercial properties have to detain the difference in flow that they generate by their additional impervious surface. And then they also have water quality measures that they have to build in as well. And so that may or may not be all detention. It might be a combination of some water quality BMPs combined with detention. But yes, all commercial businesses that go through site planning process now are required to do that by law.
So he mentioned, I don't think that he agrees. So I'm just trying to figure out. He mentioned that some businesses have those, but some don't. Are you saying that all new businesses now do?
Correct.
Okay, but the previous ones before, I was just trying to kind of identify if that was something that they were doing willingly, that was helping, maybe there's something there that we could look at. But it sounds like it's just part of it.
The trigger now is if you go through a site plan process, that's the trigger for having to build those improvements.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for explaining.
Councilmember Meisner?
I just ran across the memo. We did a stormwater credit study maybe last year that was built around that concept that if you were required or had a detention, I'm going to call it pond, or minimize the water runoff, that you would receive some kind of credit relative to your stormwater charge. That concept was presented to council. I don't remember the specific discussion, but I can tell you that council at that time elected not to move forward with that concept. I don't remember what the complication was.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what the vote was, because I remember I voted for it. I think you may have voted for it, and I think we were the only ones that did.
But I'd have to pull the memo. I just had the memo the other day, but I'm sure Adam's got it or somebody does, about there was this concept of that you got a credit against your stormwater charge if you had retention or minimal stormwater, because that's the fundamental problem I have.
And we set it up as a rebate scenario.
A rebate.
Yep.
That you're required to put in a hard surface, or let's just call it asphalt for the most part, you're required to put in, which creates a higher impervious surface fee, and you're required to have stormwater runoff retention capabilities or reduction capabilities, but then you're coming back and you're charging that same guy the same rate that he didn't do anything. It just seems like it's double. It's double fees.
What I can tell you is it was a staff-supported initiative. We can bring it back, we can watch the tape and what the discussion was that night, but.
I think that would be independent of this, though.
It would be, yeah. But
Yeah.
if you want us to bring that back, that's not a problem.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Thank you. My memory of that particular discussion is that in trying to create fairness for people who had that, we created inequities for others. And that's the reason that I felt that council voted it down at that time. But I would like to say that there is a pervious surface parking lot here in town, just up from the middle school. It's at Colorado Legacy Lands. That parking lot in front of the building that Angela Bellantoni built, used to be Environmental Alternatives. That's a pervious surface parking lot. It was installed about 10 years ago, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's right.
And so is not subject to the fee.
Correct.
And it's held up over the 10 years very well.
Yeah, I knew that she did something, but I know that there's at least one out there that.
Yeah.
So our vote tonight is not the final vote. We will vote again in 2 weeks to make this official, if that's what council chooses. I would imagine in 2 weeks, we probably will have a few more people in the audience with questions, but I would like to recommend, Ryan, if you could please, and Adam, get those studies, get those memos, those links to the YouTube videos, and give it to all of City Council so we all can do some reviews and have a little bit more education on that for our next vote. And if there is a desire for council to maybe revisit some of those incentives for those who are required to do detention ponds, then we can have that conversation, but that is independent from the stormwater fee. Just want to put that out there. Councilman Jaquez.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 1 of 2020 series on the increase, the base rate used to calculate stormwater management fee chargeable by the city stormwater utility enterprise on first reading.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I do. I have a
Councilmember
I have a question.
Gonzalez.
Because right now I'm feeling like I need to revisit all of this. It's been a while since I've looked at our stormwater budget. I don't feel qualified to vote tonight.
You have to vote. You're a member of council, you have to vote on this one. You can abstain.
I'm talking to Mayor, please.
Well, but you have to vote.
Okay,
So what I'm saying is I feel like I need to revisit the issues that Mr. Weed brought up.
So, and you can, and I said we still have 2 weeks, so tonight isn't a final vote, I would like to recommend that we move forward, at least with the initial first reading. We still have 2 weeks for the second reading for review, and we still could table it at that time.
Okay, I
So
feel
this is-
comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I just
we
needed to
still
know
could be
what my
tabled.
options
We still
were.
can make recommendations to staff, we can still look for other options. This is just an opportunity to keep the momentum going forward. Even if we approve to get this HVAC truck, it's still not going to be until the end of the year.
I understand.
to be able
That's all I needed to
So
know.
I'd like to
Thank
move
you.
forward if we can. Any more discussion on the matter? Then I'd like to call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you. We appreciate the leadership of council in addressing this serious issue and taking care of Canyon City's basic needs. It is time to move into executive session. Councilmember Meisner, would you like to read us into that?
Sure. Madam Mayor and Council, I move that City Council enter into the executive session for the following purpose: to consider personnel matters pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024F, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session specifically for the city administrator evaluation.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded, and is that where we call for a vote?
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez? Aye. Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Right,
Do I
we'll
have
move to
another
executive
copy of
session.
this?